Hello and welcome to Global Morning. But here it's a beautiful, beautiful Saturday, and of course, it's a Valentine's Day. I decided to do the orange color because some people will attack me. Meanwhile, my name is Anita Patrick. It's good to have you join us on Global Morning this beautiful Saturday, 14th day of February 2026. How are you doing, everyone? Meanwhile, before I get to a response, I have my co-host with me, who's doing the Valentine with me here in the studio. Victor, it's good to have you. How you doing?
A beautiful morning to you, Annie. I didn't get the memo. I'd have dressed in a more Valentine dressing.
How can you say you didn't get the memo? I didn't
get it on time. Well, happy Valentine's to all our viewers.
Yes.
Of course, it's a beautiful day to spread love, to show kindness, and make someone happy. It's a day of love.
Yes, it is a day. It is a day of love, indeed, a day to share the good things, the kindness you have around people. Tell people that they are amazing at what they do. Yes. It doesn't have to just be around spouses alone. It's
funny enough, I was reading something that love doesn't have to be, like you said, about spouses or the romantic kind of love. Love has so many spectrums, so you don't have to dwell on a particular angle. You can just go show love to an orphan. You should smiling to somebody. Let me smile to you now. That's my signature. That's your way of showing love to someone in a kind way. So of course, we don't have to restrict love to a particular niche. So let's be all-encompassing in the way we show love to everyone around us, basically.
Amazing, amazing. Just that's the way we're going to show you love today, by bringing you the stories making the headlines on the front covers of our newspaper. Please stay with us. We'll bring you the headlines on the papers.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
for the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
It's good to have you back. Let's quickly dive into this. We have papers from The Punch, The Nation, The Vanguard newspaper. We have This Day, We Can Trust, and Independent newspaper. That's Saturday Independent newspaper. Let's quickly take our focus from our first paper from our lineup here. We have Saturday Punch, and it has its major headline, and it's coming on the heels of a whole lot. And let me just read out to you. It says, terrorist warning letters spark mass exodus. And we have the writer that says, Kwara communities started as military, DSS, police on red alert. We also have Monarch seeks help, Council Summers emergency meeting, and that story is on page 7 of the Saturday Punch newspaper. Saturday Punch, but just look at it, that is saying a whole lot. This is scary for the community in Kwara State. Don't forget they had a recent insecurity attack in that state, and this is actually coming to say the DSS, the security operator, everywhere is just, the communities are deserted as the military people are now taking charge to see that the people are safe.
It's actually scary, like you said, Anita. And again, from another angle, I think this is a wake-up call to the security agencies, because if you get letters like this, that means you've been preempted that there's a attack coming. So what you need to do now is to secure
on your
that,
toes.
be on your toes, be on alert. So we hope this is going to be, like we said, a wake-up call to the security agencies to do the needful. And away from that story to something very trending just below that story, it says 2027 as the kicker. Opposition seeks credible polls as INEC rolls out timetable, with details on page 4 of the Saturday Punch newspaper.
Well, that's one engaging story that has been in the front cover of papers today. Of course, happened yesterday,
yes,
and that is playing out now. Well, I'll pick up a copy and find out what the schedule of the 2027 elections will be like for the presidential and the National Assembly elections. The presidential election and National Assembly election will be for the 20th of February, 2027, and for the governors and state houses of assembly will be for the 6th of March.
Oh, the 6th of March.
Yeah, that will be happening in 2027 because that's exactly 360 days to the as inclined in the Constitution of Nigeria.
Exactly.
Let's look above that. We have a story that says confusion hits trial of suspected coup plotters. Military awaits presidential order. And that story is on page 4 there. There you have it. Please pick up a copy. Find out that story that made waves, and a lot of Nigerians are asking questions about the coup plotting, and the military came to say out to say something, and weeks or a month or two thereabout later there was another release on that of
it was quite controversial because at the beginning we heard that there was no coup, and then it eventually became confirmed, and now we're saying that the people, they don't know their faith. What is it going to happen to them? So it's a lot of confusion, like it actually says in the caption. So pick up a copy of this particular newspaper and get the details of the story.
A bit of human angle story. I just want to talk about this because it's something that touches everyone. It says how we waited for 31 years before having our first child couple. That's a whole lot of emotions, patience, trauma that must have played out before.
You can run out of adjectives to describe this particular story. It's so emotional because 31 years, I only can imagine the level
child should have been done with school
by this time,
working, probably
maybe married,
you know, and they would have been having their grandchildren. But you know, I was speaking to someone yesterday. I said everybody have their time and season.
Certainly,
everyone is unique in their own way. So just leave it. We are the ones that usually count time for the creator.
The creator's time is not your time, and he knows the best time. So 31 years has been a long time coming, but that shows that the Lord's faithfulness never goes in vain. So trust in the Lord with all your strength and all your might, and he shall certainly deliver for you, regardless of how long you've waited.
Amen to that. If I let you go, I just like the human angle stories I'm seeing on this particular.
Below that story says, man kills brother over accusation of blocking success. With details on page 7.
A lot of things happen in the nation, so we need to really pay attention and be careful of wanting to have what is not ours.
Personally,
covetousness is something you should be very careful about. Be contented.
Anita, you have to be contented. But for the beginning, I don't even think someone can even block your success in the first place. So why would you even go to let yourself believe such a bogus thing for the first time? So please, be content and believe that whatever it is that comes your way was meant to come your way, and whatever it is that never got to you was never meant to be yours.
It was never
to
come. So please, you don't have to take somebody's life.
It's not even worth it. It's not worth it.
Anyway, that's the much we can take on that particular paper. Let's turn our focus and look at what the Nation newspaper is saying. Still talking about politics there with the Nation. It says APC ADC upbeat as Nigeria elects president February 20th, 2027. And we have the writer that says, gives you the breakdown, like I said earlier. Governorship State Assembly poll set for March 6th. And we have APC mobilizing Nigerians to ensure electoral victory. While they're speaking there, we also have ADC welcomes INEC timetable, 6 strong safeguards. That story is on page 4.
And of course, like I've said earlier, there's a picture of the Professor Joash Amopiton, who's the INEC chairman, and I remember a statement he made that he wants to conduct an election where the loser would confidently congratulate the winner because of how transparent the process is. So I'm still holding on to that particular word ahead of 2027, and we're seeing how it's going to pan out.
You know, an interesting thing he said yesterday, because I was there, and he said he's looking forward to having a mock presidential election before the main election, and that's also to have a test run of the beavers, and also the technology we have, the RF portal and all that.
I think I actually think that's a
So-
great idea because if you test these things and you see hitches, because hitches would always obviously
yes.
arise. So having a mock, even though of course people would say, do we have the resources to
No,
conduct
that's part
a
of the
mock?
budget because I was about to throw that
It's part of the
question to
budget,
him and he said it was
yes.
part of the budget.
That's a great
but,
one
But that's
then.
one conversation we're going to have in depth.
Yes.
And the cost of the program.
Away from that story, above the nameplate, you see a story that says Fubara, Rivers leaders to compile new commissioners list with a rider that says stakeholders, hail governors upholding to the peace process, and that's on page 3 of the Nation's newspaper.
All right, so we see another story that says Makinde elevates 14 Oyo high chiefs to Obas, presents staff of office. That story is on page 3 as well.
And of course, a pleasant security story here says military dislodges terrorists in Kwara, intensifies operations, with details on page 3 of the Nation's newspaper.
And a bit of something there from the US there. It says, the UK to replace paper visas with e-visas from February 25th. Well, that's a whole lot coming to play for everyone that's there in the UK or those who are planning to travel.
To go there. So I think it's going to be a more seamless process. But there's a particular politics story up there. It says, Ribadu ordered my airport arrest, El-Rufai alleges, with details on page 5. Quite an interesting story. So pick up.
I saw that's a video clip or a
Yes.
picture story online somewhere where his passport was taken from him at the airport at his arrival at the airport. So pick up a copy of the paper and find out more details concerning that story. Well, that's it. Let's quickly move our focus to Saturday Vanguard. Saturday Vanguard newspaper has a different dimension of story, and we hope that gradually things will just face off. I don't know what
it's not a very pleasant story.
This is not pleasant at all. The Vanguard, Saturday Vanguard, says Nigeria violence claims 1,258 lives in 41 days. Nigeria violence.
That's on the Vanguard newspaper.
That's the Vanguard. And this is really something that is of serious concern. If you have this kind of number of lives claimed in 41 days, so what happens in the rest of the 365 days we have in a year? So let's give you the breakdown of what the writer of Saturday Vanguard says. It says loses 14 soldiers, 10 police officers, neutralizes 419 terrorists. Also have auto crashes claim 130 lives, waterways 37, insecurity disaster accounts for 1,091 deaths.
So it's a bit of positive and negative because some of the victims of this particular incident are the terrorists themselves. But if you can clearly see that the innocent people have outweighed the number of the bad guys, so to say. So we hope we see a change in those figures where we see more of the bad guys getting the brunt rather than innocent people. But we hope our security situation obviously improves. That's our daily prayer as Nigerians.
Okay, so I'm just looking at this whole breakdown, and I'm trying to do the maths in my head, and it's across the road, both from it's whether or on the road network, or you're on the waterways, or you're attached to
victim of insecurity.
And so this is really something we need to pay attention. I like that fact that they gave the statistics to give a breakdown to understand that it's a whole lot happening, and violence is a no-no if we want to get our focus right.
Certainly a no-no, because you can't have success or progress with so much violence in the country.
Okay, so
and
let's go above that.
Yes, above you see a story that says 2027 Showore predicts verdict for judges on election matters, with details on page 16 of the Saturday Vanguard.
Well, the schedule of the timetable of election is out, so a lot of things will come out.
Predictions, permutations, all will be going on.
So let's go above that. We have 36 million capital budget release. We have Nigerians slam FG over poor financing of healthcare. The health sector, they're speaking loud and clear, and that story is on page 19. Pick up a copy of the paper and find out more of that detail. Well, most of the stories here we have are stories we have
taken from other
papers. So pick up a copy and find out what's happening with the schedule of election, the dates that is set by INEC, and also get more details. Let's quickly turn our focus and look at this day newspaper. And still same story.
Of course, this day newspaper is leading with the same story in politics, and it says, with 371 days to presidential elections, here are the contenders and pretenders. He has a few riders. One here says...
So what's the word pretenders? Why would you say they are pretending?
Well,
so I'm just
details,
wondering.
of course, would give us...
So please, can you give us a guide to the breakdown?
Of course, there are
riders?
many riders here. It says, one of them here says, PDP, ADC express readiness as INEC fixes February 20 for 2027 presidential and NAS elections. A second rider here says, opposition parties task electoral umpire on free, credible elections.
And that's with This Day newspaper.
Of course, that's with the This Day newspaper. And there's a rider here again that says, commission to consult over Ramadan concerns. And the last rider here says, CVR hits 884,737 nationwide. At least that's a positive one.
Okay, so we have the fact that we have a lot of people registering for the continuous voter registration exercise, and hopefully my major focus and concern is not just to register, but vote the polling unit and cast your vote. Certainly. Because that's the major thing that will give you an edge and give you the mouth to speak when issues come up with politicians. Because I was at a forum where we call them the think tanks. We're talking about issues around democracy and you know. So I was talking about, and they said the elite class are not more than the population of Nigeria.
Of course, they're not. They're a bigger minority.
So why can't we use our strength in our number to be able to come out and vote and make that happen? That happened in 2015.
Of course, we've seen that.
So why can't it replay itself if you think you're not seeing or you're not getting results for what you want? So come out, stop sitting in your house, come out that day and cast your vote. And because of course, just like it's here, 371 days to the presidential election, you have enough time to make up your mind, watch the process. I like where this is put. It says here are the contenders and pretenders. If you know they are pretenders, I know they are real contenders. Come out and
show us on that particular
and elect the person who you feel would do the right thing to give that.
Because just sitting down and complaining has never changed anybody's situation. You have to be conscious and take action. So please do the needful by electing the right people in the right places. Okay,
so below that we have where it says CAS Nigeria to acquire over 46 cutting-edge fighter aircraft, UAVs to enhance air power. Okay,
that's the chief of staff speaking.
That's chief of staff speaking there. So that's a good one. If you have that come out to
positive.
play, positive one.
And we hope it yields positive results also, of course.
Okay, so we have another thing here that says social media, e-commerce redefining Valentine's Day celebration. Well, social media is taking a whole lot on this particular day. A lot of money is coming out from the e-commerce. A lot of people are making their money. You have vendors,
lots of transfers, lots of orders
and all that. So, well, for those making the orders, make sure it goes around everybody. So let's see a bit of a sad one here for we, the media. We have where it says tributes as veteran journalist Dan Agbese is laid to rest in Benue State.
That's not a positive one. We just hope his family has the fortitude to bear this loss, and we hope he finds peace wherever he is.
Well, that's the much we can take with This Day newspaper. Let's turn our focus to the Weekend Trust newspaper. Weekend Trust newspaper. I always like to talk, and I love this particular infographics. It comes out. So it says e-transmission of results, connectivity or political will. And then you have the INEC official there sitting down there looking at trying to upload the results through the IRF portal. And then you have the electorate standing, and then the security operators also there to ensure there's orderliness. Nigerians are watching to ensure that they get the exact results of who they voted for. And this should be what it should look like.
That's a very, the question they ask is a very valid question. Is it the lack of connectivity or the lack of political will that is making us to debate for so long about this e-transmission of results? But because it's something that is doable. We hope we find the right political will. And of course, the connectivity, we know is a challenge because we've had issues with that. So we just find a balance where all of this can be merged and we have the right process go seamless to ensure that we have the right people in the right places, like we always say. And away from that story, just above the mass headline is something that we've taken before, but of course I watch all the newspapers. It says 2027, INEC announces dates for presidential elections and Google polls, with particular details of this story on page 16. And then away from that particular story, something not so pleasant. It says, bandit kills DPO in Katsina State. And of course, another one here says, inside Kano, well of death. Details of this particular story is on page 8 of the Weekend Trust newspaper.
Well, there's a whole lot happening there, and then you see that story there. If I feel sad, the DPO their story where the bandits killed the DPO in Katsina State. That's someone who is going to ensure that the safety
in that community,
but we pray that his family will bear this loss, and then he has paid the ultimate price for the country.
And we hope, of course, like you said, his family, whoever it is that has sacrificed their life on the line for Nigeria, should have their families adequately taken care of. So please, we hope the government would swoop in and give the family the right help they need. And of course, the story just below that story says the future of medicine in Nigeria is private, and that is Dr. Mariam Dija Ogebe speaking. With details on page 10.
Okay, so that's it. Let's quickly turn our focus to Saturday Independent newspaper, which has its own story talking about the issue of the Kwara attacks, the insecurity with the Saturday Independent newspaper. It says Kwara untold story of Nigeria's safe states facing rising violence. You know, Kwara used to be a state where we used to have all of this issue, and all of a sudden the focus is moving from where it used to be to this, from the northeast now is moving this way, and it's a whole lot of concern that a lot of people are looking at how did we get to this point. But that's it.
And don't forget, last week we even said like they use safe, because before now Kwara was not plagued by so many insecurity, and like we said, this is a very critical state, because it's like a bridge from the northern Nigeria to southern Nigeria. So if Kwara State falls to so much violence and insecurity, that shows you can spill to other parts of the country, in the southern part of southwest in particular. So please, this is something that has to be nipped in the bud, so that we do not have this violence spread further across the country more than it already has. So we hope it's nipped in the bud. And away from that story, let's see a bit of business above the nameplate. It says Tinubu's SMEs tax power sector reforms worthy of commendation, and that is Tony Elumelu speaking. With details on page 4 of the Saturday Independent newspaper.
Okay, so let's see how that tax plays out. And then we have, it says, surrendering phones at security facilities sparks debate among Nigerians. Yes. You know, we have this always, almost all the time. So most times you go to some places,
corporate offices,
where you need to see somebody. Yes, they're trying to put in security measures and all of that, but you're also concerned because some documents you need are soft copies and on the phones. So you're asking yourself, how do I communicate what I came in here for? So that's one debate. I like the
that's one part again, and other people have raised concerns that what are you trying to hide? Because if you know that the process there is going to be transparent and seamless, then I can take my phone, I can even make a record or two if you have nothing to hide. So people have raised concerns about that. But of course, the agencies have said they have reasons why they are doing this that we might not know as citizens. So of course, it's left to see how that pans out.
Okay, so we have there, it says below that we have Igbo Nation not excluded from history, book publisher authors debunk claims. That's on page 19. And just below that we also have where it says how sensational headlines influence public perception during NSAS. That's Lai Mohammed speaking there, the former Minister of Information speaking there on page 3.
Of course, just below that, the below story here says PFN warns against early 2027 politicking, urges focus on insecurity governance. With details on page 5 of Saturday Independent.
Well, that's the much we can take on newspaper review segments. It's been a whole lot of stories, from politics to human rights stories, you know, and from the issue of the tax, business, and the Valentine's season where e-commerce is also making a wave for you there. So a whole lot for you to pick up the copy of the paper and find out which of the stories catches your fancy, you know, so that you get the details of it and be able to know what direction you want to take your focus to.
Certainly.
Yes. So that's it. We quickly need to get into our discussion segment, which is one segment you need to pay attention to and don't miss out on any of these details. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
we delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
It's good to have you back on Global Morning. Let's take you straight to the discussion segment, which we're looking at the 2027 countdown to the election, of course, because the schedule of the election, that's the timetable, is out, and a whole lot of concerns the raised, questions are asked. Well, let's tell you that Nigeria's electoral body has formally released the notice of election and full timetable for the 2027 general elections, officially stating the stage for what many consider a defining moment for the nation's democracy. In a press conference in Abuja, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Josh Amopito, declared that presidential and National Assembly elections will hold on February 20th, 2027. Governorship and State Assembly elections will hold as follows as March 6th, 2027. This announcement comes amid ongoing amendment to the Electoral Act at the National Assembly, raising important legal and political operational questions. But before we give you this, let's take a look at some of the key highlights. But let's take this package report of how he made that statement during his engagement with the media yesterday at the headquarters of the commission. After this, we'll have our guests join us, and then we'll speak to the issues and all of the issues raised by Nigerians concerning the preparations for 2027 general election. Please take a listen. Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has rolled out a comprehensive timetable for the 2027 general elections, outlining key dates and activities that will guide political parties, candidates, and stakeholders in the build-up to the polls. The schedule details timelines for party primaries, submission of candidate nominations, commencement of campaigns, voter registration updates, and other critical pre-election processes. INEC says the early release of the timetable is aimed at giving political parties and aspirants ample time to prepare, while also enhancing transparency and credibility in the electoral process. The Commission reaffirmed its commitment to conducting free, fair, and credible elections, urging political parties to strictly adhere to the stipulated guidelines and timelines.
116 subsection 2, 132 subsection 2, and 178 subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, elections to the said offices shall hold not earlier than 150 days and not later than 30 days before the expiration of the term of office.
INEC chairman says the commission will leverage technologically through a mock presidential election, strengthen logistics planning, and intensify voter education to ensure improved efficiency in 2027. He also called on security agencies, civil society organizations, and the media to play their roles in safeguarding the integrity of the electoral process.
I'm committed to even having a mock presidential election, so that whatever technology, you see, the delicate thing about technology is that if a technology is designed without being properly tested.
The 2027 general elections will see Nigerians elect the president and members of the National Assembly, as well as governors and state houses of assembly across the country. INEC maintains the strict compliance with the electoral calendar will be critical to delivering a credible and hitch-free general election in 2027. The INEC would also follow in constitution with the amendments, Electoral Amendment Act that is set in. Well, there you have it, the INEC headquarters there, where the chairman of INEC, Professor Mapiton, says the commission is acting within the constitutional timelines, publishing the notice more than 360 days before the election as required by law. He clarified that the commission would proceed under the current Electoral Act while monitoring proposed amendments currently before the National Assembly. The commission also directed all resident electoral commissioners across the 36 states and the FCT to publish notices in their constituencies. INEC also reaffirmed its commitment to deepening the deployment of technology, cleaning up the National Voters Register, strengthening collaboration with security agencies, expanding the voter education. The chairman also warned the political parties to strictly adhere to timeliness for primaries and submissions, noting that INEC would enforce compliance without hesitation. And then he said 2027 elections will determine the president, the vice president, governors in 28 states. Don't forget that we also have off-cycle elections across different states, which are not part of the 28 states, which the elections will be conducted come the 6th of March. And he also said members of the National Assembly, members of the State Houses of Assembly, and then the announcement marks the formal commencement of Nigeria's next electoral cycle. That's a whole lot that's been put out by the Independent National Electoral Commission, telling you that they set the tone, they're ready to conduct the 2027 general elections amid all of the issues. Don't forget that initially we had said we had seen rumors of false timetables where we were saying that election was going to come up in November, but INEC severally debunked that conversation that was on some spaces in the media, and now the real timetable is now set in motion, and all of that is what Nigerians need to understand, because joining me right now to have this conversation is the Deputy Director of Publicity in the Department of Voter Education and Publicity in INEC, there in person of Wilfred Ifoga. He will be joining me to dwell and talk about all of this and what's the way forward, the significance of this timetable, the issue around the Electoral Amendments Act, and what Nigerians should be expecting in order to see how the democratic space of the country can play. Hello, it's good to have you join me on the program Global Morning. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Good morning.
Happy Valentine's to you, because I know you had your plans. I'm sorry I had to take you out.
All right, thank you. I wish you the same. Happy Valentine as well.
So let's get it straight. The timetable and schedule of activity for 2027 general election is out by the commission there. Let's get it. How significant is today's announcement, that's yesterday, I beg your pardon, in the broader context of Nigeria's democratic evolution since 2015 of Nigeria electoral process?
All right, yeah, with the announcement yesterday of the notice of election for the 2027 general elections, it actually put to bed some of the rumors and fake publications that actually be going out there in the public space, thereby bringing confusion on the activities of the commission. So yesterday, I know there was this apprehension whether the commission is going to operate probably on the yet to be amendments of the Electoral Act 2022, or we are going to rely on the existing Electoral Act of 2022. So as at yesterday, it was released, and of course, the outline of activities was also, released as well. And this also set the pace for the political parties and also other stakeholders on the roles they are going to play, especially for the political parties. Outlines have been given on when it's expected for them to conduct their primaries so that nominations can start taking place, primaries done. And meanwhile, there are timelines for all these activities to be done. So as we move closer to the year of the elections, it's expected that all these activities are done timely, so that for parties that are currently having internal squabbles now, they should be able to do that in time, so that there will not be a situation whereby they go out of time and there will be this issue of not submitting the names of their candidates for the office.
Okay. I see that coming to play. Like I was there with you yesterday when that was put out. The chairman referenced constitutional compliance. Why was it important to release the timetable now, despite ongoing amendments? Yes, the constitution says it has to be this time frame, but why is it important? Because we still have amendments. Is that going to affect the process?
Well, like the chairman said, the extant law right now is Electoral Act 2022. And of course, we have the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended that you're operating on with the Commission's regulation. So we can't say probably because we're already aware there's an amendment going on, then we fall out of place in terms of abiding by the already existing laws that we have. So if that one is passed, it depends on the effective date. And definitely the Commission will see how it probably will affect what we already have and probably work with it. But then we already have an existing law, and that's what we are working with.
And unofficial election dates, just like I also cleared the air right here, circulating how damaging was this information in the electoral process, because we've always talked about the issue of misinformation and the media having a way of containing all of this. That was one thing that threw people off balance. People were questioning, is this really going to play out? Because we know the election cycle is 360 days ahead of the next election, and then there was this damaging information that went out to the schedule of the election timetable. How damaging was this misinformation to the electoral process?
Well, I probably, somehow, since 2019, the Commission has already have a fixed timeline for how the general elections will be conducted. Like, it's going to be in the month of February, the third Saturday of the month of February, then 2 weeks after, the other set of elections will take place. Why? So these are already set timelines. And so probably based on that, persons have just probably speculated and started releasing maybe information on that. But for the Commission, we are not actually startled by it. But instead, we counter this information by letting people know that we have not actually released the timetable for the elections, and letting them know that for us to release it, of course, there has to be a formal channel, just like the chairman did yesterday by calling the media why the timetable was released to them.
From 2015. In 2015, Nigeria witnessed its first opposition transition. In 2019, logistical and technological challenges emerged. In 2023, beavers and electronic transmission were introduced under the amended Electoral Act. So has Nigeria's electoral system improved structurally between 2015 and 2023 with what we've seen so far?
Of course, no doubt it has improved. From every challenges we encountered, lessons were learned, and we tried our best to ensure that those hiccups do not occur again. So, for those watching critically, you know that we have surmounted those particular challenges until maybe 2023. And the talk was that probably yes, in our result management, people are not talking about the issue of the transmission of result, whatever. But then we know definitely we do upload our results on the IREF, and same thing we are going to do. Whatever the new law will be for us to work with, we'll definitely do that.
I've been around election coverage and I've seen some issues, and I like the fact that just like you've witnessed, I've also witnessed all of this improvements over time. But a lot of concerns are also, let's start with the FCT Area Council election. The chairman did a mock inspection of all of those issues around the beavers. He checked out all of what's happening, but he also mentioned it at the press conference yesterday, where he was saying that he doesn't even mind having a mock presidential election take place. So Nigerians, a lot of concerns are being asked, how is this going to go with the issue around the budgeting for all of that? Because although he mentioned all that, but we're looking at that coming to play because you also presented did your budget defense at the National Assembly. So how's that going to be seamless for the Commission having to have a mock presidential election before the main election, looking at your time frame and schedule of activities going for the 2027 election?
Yeah, like you did say, the chairman said it, and if we look at what happened after the 2022 general election and the trust deficit that followed, especially with perception on how people now view the Commission. What happened in 2022 was the fact that the Commission never envisaged this hiccup because probably a pilot scheme was not carried out to ensure how effective using this method in result management. So like for the FCT election, which comes up on the 21st, we are not giving anything to chance. So the chairman himself led other commissioners and other staff to monitor by deploying beavers in about 289 polling units across the FCT to ascertain how it's going to work, and so that on election day, which is 21st, whatever challenges or probably not seen immediately, at least during the trials for the 289 units covering the different zones, we would have been able to come up, and then if there are challenges, we'll be able to nip it at the bud so that on the 21st it will. Then for the general elections, yeah, it did mention that means this is going to be on a wider scale. Yet it will definitely come with a cost. But right now, I think there is no cost too much right now to ensure that the right thing is done, so that at least we don't have the issue just like we encountered in 2023.
Some Nigerians argued that technology raised expectations, just like you said, that we are not fully met in 2023. And you've learned your lessons, you've looked at pilot schemes to see how this plays out. Is voter confidence stronger or weaker today compared to 2015? Because I've covered election. I was at the last Anambra governorship election, and some polling units had voter apathy. Some had turnout of it. And one issue which has been raised, even with this FCT Area Council election, is the concern for voter apathy. Is voter confidence, in your opinion or in your perspective, stronger or weaker compared to 2015?
Well, I think a lot of factors will definitely relate to that. Yes, if you are using an Anambra election, well, I know there was this, maybe it's a lack of confidence or not too sure of what to do. But then these are all lessons, and we are trying our efforts. We've tried to also increase our voter education efforts to ensure that voters, have that confidence in the Commission. for them to do the needful, for them to participate and to ensure that their votes count. And also, while doing that, we want to ensure that the process is thorough and that there is no form of violation in terms of ensuring that one vote, one person, one vote, and things like that. So that's what the technology has brought in. And there's another thing I want to say here. The use of technology has actually improved on the credibility of the process by ensuring that those figures that they used to turn out in previous election, they no longer hold sway. It has actually cut down those figures being announced because somehow you hear of multiple votings and things like that. So like the BVAS helps to ensure that it is only those that are actually registered and in that particular unit that do cast their votes, unlike what happens previously before the introduction of this technology in the process.
Now, I like the fact because I've seen it. I've seen the growth, the improvement and the country has brought in, and the seamless flow of that particular process. But when it comes to using technology, because compared to all of those times, it actually reduced a bit of the ballot box snatching that we used to see play out in that. So because you see orderliness, people queue up to wanting to get captured, you know, get your thumbprint and all of those things before you're able to get the booth to cast your vote. And that's because BVAS has taken out a lot of things. But the chairman also made a reference. Let's talk about the Electoral Amendments Bill. The chairman made reference to the Electoral Amendment Bill pending before the National Assembly. If amendments pass after the timetable has been released, which is actually out, how would that affect the implementation process? Because one major clause in the amendments at the National Assembly is the issue of the transmission of election results through the IRF portal, which we've been over time. But there was a clause from the Senate that said it shouldn't be mandatory, you know. So how will that affect implementation of what the schedule of the election timetable is for 2027?
I think my own comment will be, I think let us just wait and see what the amendment will look like that will be passed. I know the commission definitely will look at it, view it, and see vis-a-vis the activities we already have. And based on that, of course, the commission probably will adjust if need be.
Okay, so let's look at the area of areas where INEC believes urgent reforms are needed. The conversation around diaspora voting has been ongoing for a long time. Diaspora voting, early voting, clearer electronic transmission provisions. Are there areas where constitutionally legislative was you think needs reforms to also have all Nigerians, all encompassing, having to be part of the electoral process?
But still, that is a constitutional thing. I think so. It's still left to the National Assembly to do that. That's all I can say for now.
All right. So, is there constitutional concern about last-minute legislative changes, which was often talked about trying when it comes to disrupting logistics? Because a lot of questions are asked around logistics. Yes, clauses by clauses were met at the National Assembly. So, is there concern in the last-minute legislative changes disrupting logistics when you have to? Let's start with this FCT area council elections.
Okay, I think if there's anything about that, I think that was why it was made clear that the funds for the commission to run its activity should be made available to them a year before its activity starts. I think that is what is paramount. Once the commission is able to get that and able to access this fund, the issue of logistics and how to plan definitely will be an issue they've been able to surmount. I think that's what normally it's supposed to be.
Looking ahead and what should go out, turnout has declined steadily since 2015. Obviously, we've seen that turnout has actually declined, not at the point of voter registration now, because I've seen the numbers in terms of voter registration increase. It shows that people are really concerned about the electoral process, wanting to see governance and democracy take place there. But security concerns also remains. Public trust fluctuates, you know, just like you mentioned earlier, that the issues around the trust system for Nigerians. And then at the media forum, so we also had this conversation where the media raised this concern about public trust and perception to the commission playing out. So my question to you right now is, what are the biggest operational challenges between now and February 2027, which will also look at a way of building that public trust for Nigerians?
Well, I think INEC as an agency saddled with responsibility of conducting elections. Apart from that, we also saddle responsibility for voter and civic education. So now that we are faced with this problem, okay, of trying to, encourage Nigerians and to let them know that yes, we are going to put in our best to ensure that what the commission is mandated to do, we'll do it with integrity, neutrality, and all the professional ethics as expected of us. So we'll continue to do it just like the chairman is going to state. Is going to work with the law as provided in the Constitution of Nigeria, the Electoral Act, and of course the regulations and policies of the commission. So we will continue to, based on all we have outlined and policies, we'll continue to bring them out as the time provides. And we just want Nigerians to continue to watch the civil society, the electorate themselves, the media too. You are also there. You are a partner as well. The security agencies, they are there. Yes, you mentioned the issue of security. Yes, we continue to discuss. Not quite long, the commission, the chairman had a consultative quarterly meeting with the security agencies, likewise political parties, civil society group, and the media in order to update them on what we are doing. So it is not just left for the commission.
So I just want to chip this in quickly. I know that the budget has been presented to National Assembly, but a lot of people are asking about how prepared is INEC financially and also technologically at this early stage, because it's an early stage. The beavers, yes, the INEC chairman spoke about it, and he said it is, for him, it is the best thing that's happened to the electoral process in terms of conducting election and all that. So at this early stage, are there any, how prepared are you? Are there any challenges at this early stage which should also be put into consideration? Because what specific, and we're looking at what specific improvement should Nigerians expect compared in 2027 compared to 2023 with all of this put in place?
Is there any challenge for now? The budget, the chairman just went to defend the budget, and for the media was there, and I know what the joint section on the electoral committee for INEC did say. They said they will definitely ensure that the commission gets the necessary support they need in order for them to get the funds they need for us to be able to operate without any issue. So I think we'll stand on that, and I believe it's going to be a wonderful electoral year as well.
Okay, so one thing I want to throw out to you is what Nigerians, some people have actually put that question to me as a media, because like you said, we're stakeholders and this is the way of putting the country straight. The question is asked, can 2027 become Nigeria's most transparent election yet? With all of this put in place, technology, saying that everything is seamless, partnership with stakeholders. So the question is put out there, can we look at 2027 election and say this is the best transparent election for Nigerians?
We just started the activities for the 2027 election. So what I want Nigerians and all that are interested in the process to see, just watch out and see all the activities that we have outlined, how we implement them. I think that is what you should judge us by.
So we're going to look at you. I'm a partner, so I don't want to sound like I'm the judge now. Just like you said, it's a teamwork. So we'll look at Nigerians are going to also pay attention and look at all of this. I'm a Nigerian, yes, but I'm also a media practitioner who is looking at how we can make this process seamless. But does Nigeria look at electoral issues when it comes to the judiciary? We have internal, just like you mentioned, it will give the timetable will give parties who have internal crisis, all of this to be able to solve their issues, and also the legal part of it, the role of the judiciary. But one thing we also want to throw to you right now is, does Nigeria need an electoral offenses commission before 2027? Because that is also the post-election issues that comes out to play, which has INEC, the judiciary, and the party himself coming to play out. So should there be set in tune and prepare their minds? Or just like my colleague joined me earlier and was speaking, he said the chairman has said he's looking forward to an election where whoever doesn't win in the process will be able to call the other person and said, congratulations, you made it this time around, it's your time?
Well, like I said, I remember even the chairman, I think in one of his address or something like that, yeah, when you talk about the elections offenses commission or something like that, yeah, because there are a lot. I think my own take on this is for all Nigerians to be on board in ensuring that we sustain our democracy. The burden is not on INEC alone as an election management body. We all have roles to play. And because even as we have mapped out our strategies and others we want to do to ensure a smooth election, others are looking for ways in order to, subvert this process. So we cannot take that out of it. There's one thing we have to look at. I think there were two things. Look at the issue of the vote buying thing now. It's an issue of our moral, and you find that people want to see that they happen so that yes, they can sell their vote, and others to buy it as well. But I think what actually gave rise to vote buying is because of the electoral process, because the process is now more thorough. No more game as usual when probably results just come up anyhow. But now they now find out that the votes really count. And because the votes really count, so people are not going after the voters themselves. So they look out for them in order to bribe them or sway them by giving them money. So that's one thing I want all Nigerians to look at. Look, you only have 4 years to make, and a gap of 4 years to be able to make these changes. And the value of your vote is more than whatever any politician will give to you on election day. We as INEC, we cannot be monitoring those giving out money for election and also be conducting election at the polling unit. So let us all as Nigerians, let's be partners in this, watch each other to ensure that the process is smooth. So now at the end, everyone will give yourself a tap at the back that we've all done well, whether you're the winner or the loser. Like the chairman said, yeah, he wants to see a situation whereby once the election is conducted and the result is announced, there will be no need for anyone to say, okay, yeah, I want to go to court, because the process is fair.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you so much for your time with us. That's the Deputy Director of Publicity, INEC, in the Department of Voter Education and Publicity, in person of Wilfred Ifoga. Thank you so much for your time and speaking to us on these issues that has to do with Nigeria preparing their minds, as this timetable and schedule of activity has set the stage for the 2027 general election. We appreciate your time with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me once again, and happy Valentine's Day.
General elections are now officially underway, at least administratively. That has been set to the release of the notice of election signals more than dates on the calendar. It signals preparations, expectation, and scrutiny as Nigeria reflects on its electoral journey from 2015 to 2023. The road to 2027 presents an opportunity not just to conduct elections, but to deepen democracy. And that's it on this particular segment of the program on Global Morning. I hope you got the best of what you need to understand from the aspects or the mindset of INEC, telling you that this is what has been put in place, this is what their mindset is, and they hope to have more engagement with stakeholders, because it's a multi-stakeholder engagement. It's not just left to INEC alone. Like Wilfred Ifoga said there, he said they're looking for a time where everyone, both whether you lost, whether you win, to be able to tap yourself at the back to say, well done, you did well. And also this timetable has given political parties ample time to fix their house and gets out there to get the results they're looking forward to as we count down to the 2027 general election. Well, there's a whole lot more to come on the program. Please stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
Glad you could join us. Let's take a look at what Saturday has in store. If you are in Cross River, Akwa Ibom, and Rivers State, you might want to keep that umbrella close. Isolated thunderstorms are expected in the early hours. For the rest of the country, the morning should be calm with partly cloudy to sunny sky. A pretty decent start for the weekend. Now, heading up north is staying hot. Temperatures are expected to remain in their upper 30s. So make sure you stay hydrated and avoid prolonged sun exposure if you can. Looking towards the afternoon, there are some welcome relief on the way for residents of Kogi, Ondo, Edo, Anambra, Enugu, Imo, and parts of Edo State. Thunderstorms are likely later in the day, and those showers should help cool things down. The same goes for Bayelsa, Lagos, Delta, Rivers, Cross River, and Akwa Ibom. Afternoon thunderstorms are also expected to roll in. So plan your outdoor activities accordingly. So whether you're stepping out early or making afternoon plans, stay weather aware and stay safe. And that's your weather update for Saturday. I am Akami Samarda. Enjoy your weekend.
New Imo is on the rise. In the beating heart of Owerri, business never sleeps. From sunrise to sundown, the wheels keep turning. And behind the scenes, vision meets action. Governor Hope Uzodinma's leadership has left the pages of manifestos to become real actions and achievements. Transformations that piece by piece feels like a miracle. But progress needs peace to thrive. And in Imo, we are not leaving it to chance. From land to sky to river deep, guardians are always watching, protecting dreams and opportunities. If you go to the quiet shore of Orashi Power, you will see the awakening of a hydropower roaring to electrify and energize a blossoming economy. The change is visible. The heartland of the East is under construction as new roads are threading together once forgotten places. Industry is humming again and communities are alive. At the center of it all, a digital revolution is rising. A new ministry with a new mission. Not just cables and codes, but capacity. 500,000 young minds trained each year to build a digital future. And as Orashi power goes up, so does Imo, lifting with it the hopes of a hard-working people. A new Imo is on the rise.
We're still here and it's still Global Morning, and of course that conversation went really interesting there with the Deputy Director for Publicity in INEC in the Department of Voter Education and Publicity with Wilfred Ifoga, speaking to the issues where Nigerians have raised a lot of concern. I still have Mukhtar here with me. Mukhtar, a whole lot. I had to throw him to the issue you raised about having a smooth election process, yes, and having losers having to call their winners to say, yes, congratulations. And he said yes, the chairman mentioned, yes, that because he wants a smooth run. Because I had to put it to him, say Nigerians, I remember where that was not this Qatar chairman, the last chairman of the INEC, the commission, Mahmoud Yakubu, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, did his own bits, and when he had his own time there, and a lot of concerns were raised to 2023 general election where Nigerians asked questions, how do we trust the system anymore? Voter apathy had to start playing out. So we have the 21st of February, which is just a few days to go, election in the area council here in the FCT, and voter apathy is one concern that has been raised,
especially among the young people.
Among the young people. Yes, we have a massive number of registration, but would they translate into voters coming out to the polling units to vote on that?
That's a very valid question, because like we've said, we've seen a massive turnout of people registering, but registering is just half the story. The entire story is you completing the process, going down there to the polls, making sure your vote counts.
Yes.
And like he said, it's a good one. All the infrastructure that INEC has put in place with all the preparations,
yes,
we're just hoping that those preparations and all the infrastructure in place will translate to
good
credibility in our process, because we've had a lot. INEC has been on the spotlight for a long time, and I like the fact that they've been stepping up their games, especially with the rhetorics. And now for this election, as the FCT election, I think is a litmus test for them to now put those things they've said and we see them into action. And if they can get that right, I think it will instill a lot of morale and confidence of the voters, even ahead of 20. They'll be like, oh wow, if we can get this right, I'm really excited ahead of 2027. That's what an average voter will tell himself, if we get this particular election right, and I hope we certainly do.
So Nigerians are really looking forward to all of that taking place, and I like the fact that I had to try to take him up on that to say, how do we look at the issue of the Amendment Act, which is going to come out? Is that going to affect logistics plans? Is that going to affect the transmission of results? That's the amendments affect all of those things. Those are questions Nigerians want to ask to get clarification, and I'm glad that the director there, or deputy director rather, was able to speak to those issues, and he's giving Nigerians assurance that they should just please keep trusting the process, keep giving INEC the benefit of the doubt, because it's a process. They've improved from 2015, because we've seen when Nigerians came to speak out through their votes, and it made a mark. So 2027, like I threw it to him to say, can we say it will be the best election yet for Nigeria in terms of governance process?
That's a $1 million question, Anita. And I just hope it is, because the beauty of every democracy is for you to see an improvement after every election
every 4
cycle.
years. Yes.
If you did good the last time, you don't rest on your laurels and just be comfortable. You challenge yourself. Okay, we've gotten this particular XYZ right, and we have lapses in this particular field.
Yes.
Let's ahead, how can we better our results from the previous one? So 2027 should be something that is better than the previous election that we had in 2023. And of course, further elections should always be an improvement on the last one, not we going back.
I had to trim the issue of the tribunal cases, because I cover several tribunals, and for me, I'm always saying, when I sit down there at the tribunal, I'm always wondering, why do we have to get to this point? There's a whole lot of back and forth issues raised to how this process was like this, why this was like that. And I had to put out that question to know, how do we get out of the way? Just have an election where it's free, fair, and credible. Nigerians don't have to do the pre-election process, do the main election day, and then come out for a post-election, process where you have to go to the tribunal and speaking back and forth. But I'm hoping that with the beavers, with the Electoral Amendments Act, with the RF working out and giving Nigerians the exact real time, if that works, because that's what Nigerians are really clamoring for.
Yes.
if that can come to play for Nigerians, maybe that will make our election and build the confidence of Nigeria to the commission, knowing that this is the time that this is the kind of thing we're looking forward to, and it has come to stay. And Nigerians are now going to be confident in the process. Because I was in the collation center for the 2022 general election, and at the early hours when the result was announced, you need to feel the silence in that room. It was really cold. And for the first time covering elections over the years, and I stood there and I was like, okay.
This silence is a loud one.
If noticed, for like a week, you know, so a lot of questions were raised. One of the reasons why the Electoral Act amendments came to play, Nigerians needed to understand what really went wrong. Where did we miss it? You know, because a lot of clamor went out to it. But we're looking for now that it's a good time frame we have. 360.
It's enough time.
271 days left, but actually, which is good enough to the 360 days set by the Constitution for the election.
Yes.
For every political party that has internal crisis,
solve everything. Get your house in order.
You know, get your house in order. And the civil society organizations, the media, the security operatives, everybody getting their acts together to ensure that this is a seamless process. Because all we're trying to do is give ourselves the dividends of democracy. If democracy is set in tone and we have the best team playing out for us, we should know that it is time to get the music for us to dance.
For certain, for sure. Even though this particular process might not eliminate the challenges, might not eliminate people going to tribunals, because that's part of the democracy. But at least it will reduce to the very barest minimum incidences of election malpractice, incidences of people having mistrust of the entire process. So it's a very great one, actually, and I believe we'll get it right this time.
Okay, so let's turn off conversation now, because we have our guests who will be joining us shortly. We're moving away from the election issues and we're talking about economy. Let's look at what Nigeria's digital economy is saying to us. Are we maximizing the opportunity, or what are we really doing? And I'll have Mukhtar take over the spiel.
Of course, that's a very tough question, because we know we've told ourselves that Nigeria has had too many concentration of its economy in the oil sector. Let's diversify. And of course, the digital economy is one that globally is the new oil, basically, as they call it.
The new oil.
So it's one that would be a very interesting conversation. I will see how Nigeria as a country can maximize its potentials in this particular undertapped industry.
Okay, so our guests will join us shortly after this break. Please stay with us.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
Good morning once again, and welcome back to Global Morning. Now, over the past lives as Nigerians and of course across the world, even how we earn is something that technology has touched. And as Nigerians, we've often been described as one of Africa's leading digital markets, where we have millions of internet users, a growing tech startup scene, and of course businesses increasingly moving online. But beyond these headlines and the success stories, we have very important questions that remain. Questions like, are we truly maximizing opportunities within Nigeria's digital economy? Is digital growth translating into widespread economic benefit for Nigerians? And are businesses adapting real quickly to these changes of the economic focus? So joining me today, this morning for this conversation is Barrister Victor Pius Emu. He is a professional with expertise and experience in tech and business law, startup development and strategy. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation, Barrister Victor.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the program, Barrister Victor. I'd like for us to start talking about the definition and the real meaning of digital economy. And when we talk about Nigeria's digital economy, what does it really mean in practical terms? And for the average Nigerian watching this morning, how does digital economy affect their daily lives? I don't know if Barrister Victor is there. I think Barrister Victor is having issues with the connection, but once he joins us, the conversation would continue. Let's take a time out for a while. Glad to have you back, and it's good to have Barrister Victor on the call. And before the break, we were talking about Nigeria's digital economy, and I posed a question to the guests about the real definition of the digital economy in Nigeria and how it affects the average Nigerian practically. Barrister Victor, are you there?
All right, thank you very much. Yes, please confirm that you can hear me now.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Great. Please confirm that you can hear me clearly.
I can hear you.
All right, fantastic. So in very simple terms, right, the digital economy refers to economic activities that are powered by technologies, digital technologies, right? So you have the internet, you have social media in general terms, you have artificial and virtual reality, right? Now, prior to, let's say, a couple of decades ago, right, you had business being driven largely by conventional methods, by newspaper marketing, by billboard advertising, by word of mouth, handbills, flyers, and so on and so forth. But we now live in a day and age where advertising and business in general, the startup ecosystem, is driven significantly by digital technologies, right? So now in very simple terms, for those listening and watching, the digital economy simply means all business activities, all commercial activities that are driven by digital technologies, from the internet to social media and to other forms of augmented technology solutions.
Positives in terms of our digital economy in Nigeria. So where is Nigeria making real progress in digital economy? Where are those places that you could confidently look and say, yes, we're getting it right in this particular aspect?
Okay, so now just to work with some statistics here.
I don't know if
Nigeria's ICT
Victor is still there. Seems to be a bit of challenge with Barrister Victor.
Okay, am I back? Am I back with us?
Okay, he's back.
Okay, fantastic. So now Nigeria's ICT sector contributed about 16 to 18% of GDP over the last year. You know, that sets the tone for conversations around our digital economy because it does show that there is significant involvement of our technological sector across all areas of our economy, including, ironically, the oil and gas sector. You have, for instance, the National Content Monitoring and Development Board enabling a lot of technological growth in the oil and gas sector, enabling the growth of a lot of local content via technology enablement in that space as well. But now moving away from traditional business, you have quite obviously the entertainment sector monitoring in Africa. The creative industries is one of the largest contributing sectors of Nigeria's GDP today. Indeed, it's one of the top five. It's been so consistently over the last 10 to 15 years, right? So now, one of the areas that Nigeria is very strongly getting it right is in its creative industries. And by creative industries, we mean obviously the world famous Nollywood. We're referring now also to our music industry. We're referring to other areas of our creativity. Now, you have very interestingly digital arts taking a very serious center stage in terms of contribution to Nigeria's economy. You have the rise of a lot of digital artists. You have the rise of a lot of virtual technologies used to promote and generate art. Obviously, we cannot now ignore the rise of artificial intelligence, which is now contributing heavily to, the art space, to the creative industry space here in Nigeria. So yes, one of the core areas where Nigeria is strongly participating in the digital space, in the digital economy globally, is via its creative industries. There are opportunities for us to contribute more in other sectors. However, yes, we do have a strong presence in terms of the creative industries.
I hope we are able to maximize those potentials that we have. I'd like for us to also look at small businesses and, of course, their digital adaptation, because we've seen many small businesses using digital tools like WhatsApp, Instagram, mobile banking, and online places. So from what you've observed, are Nigerian small businesses and also the small enterprises, are they truly benefiting from this digital tools, or are we still having many struggles to transition from traditional businesses to these online spaces?
Now, an interesting observation in response to that question. We now have a lot of small businesses run by millennials and by, interestingly, the notorious Gen Z. What that means is that adoption in terms of technologies is growing at a much faster rate especially within the last 5 years, than it did within, the previous 20 years combined, for instance. So now you have a lot of small businesses driven by people who already have adapted and adopted technology within their daily lives. And so transitioning into adopting it for their businesses is no longer so much of a problem. For instance, on TikTok and Instagram, you have you have now hundreds of thousands of Nigerian online vendors who are actively engaging social media for business sales, right? Now, obviously, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of regulation, in terms of quality assurance, in terms of consumer protection. But then, in addressing the core issue of technology adoption in business, the very of businesses on Instagram, on Twitter, and now LinkedIn alone is itself a clear adoption, or itself a clear indicator, rather, of technology adoption in business at a much, much more significant rate than it used to be previously. I mean, you go on Twitter now these days, and you find that there are a lot, right, of business entities, a lot of individuals actively utilizing Twitter to promote their businesses, to market what they do, whether it's physical products, or it's Web3 technologies. Regardless, you now have Twitter, for instance, as another very major marketplace for goods and services across the Nigerian landscape, right? And you have Twitter being now the basis, you have Instagram also being the base for a lot of transactions, right? A lot of people watching this, for instance, will at least one in every 5 persons or 10 persons who be watching this will have bought something of Instagram or of TikTok or of Twitter, right? I mean, this is not mentioning platforms like Facebook, for instance. This is also not mentioning platforms like LinkedIn, that is obviously the global hub, for professional and corporate services, which is another spectrum of business, right? So generally what we're saying is that now social media especially, right, has become a very solid hub for businesses. And many Nigerian businesses, especially driven by millennials and Gen Zs, right, and even Gen Alpha right now, have become very quick at adopting these technologies. Now, again, it's important for us to pay attention to core issues of regulation, core issues of consumer protection, core issues, of transactional security, because obviously the accessibility of these technologies to business people also unfortunately implies the accessibility of these technologies also to fraudsters as well, right? So what that means is that whilst we celebrate the gains in terms of rapid and increasing adoption, right, we must now be very wary of the concordant issues of internet fraud, and exposure to risk by consumers in terms of online business as well. Now, the flip side of this conversation also is the impact of digital technologies like fintech, right? Like fintech on, traditional businesses. I mean, the rise of OPay and MoneyPoint, for instance, and other similar fintech solutions has driven businesses significantly, right? Because now you have businesses that were stuck in traditional invoicing methods, traditional payment methods, traditional, accounting methods, now being onboarded to digital technologies that help them receive and, send payments faster, that help them keep track of, basic accounting, that help them keep track of even now invoicing, right? So you now have a lot of market women, a lot of traditional vendors, local vendors in rural and remote areas now being enabled by fintech, by financial technologies, or fintech as we call them, right? To do business faster, to receive payments faster and more securely, to keep track of their spending much better, right? And obviously to deliver services, more rapidly, more securely, right? And in more customer friendly ways. So in terms of digital technologies, besides social media, we now have also fintech seriously driving businesses at the micro level across Nigeria. I mean, you go everywhere these days, and whereas a few years ago, a lot of people didn't even have bank accounts. Now you have situations where almost every vendor has an OPay or a MoneyPoint account, and you could just make a quick transfer even for small items. And there's just literally a bit more openness in terms of digital technologies when we speak of fintech, right, than there used to be several years ago.
Infrastructure and accessibility, and I would like for us to look at limitations that hinder this particular industry, because we know that a digital economy heavily depends on reliable internet and also stable electricity. So how much are the infrastructural challenges that we have limiting Nigeria's digital potential, and can we realistically talk about maximizing opportunities in the digital space without fixing power and also the connectivity challenges we have?
No, we cannot. No, we cannot. Now, the way to look at it is quite simply, if we're already doing so well in view of current challenges in terms of power, in terms of internet access, in terms of lack of data centers, in terms of very often the dearth even of business and industry data, because that's also another infrastructural challenge. It's let's call it digital infrastructure, because many times we underestimate the value of data, right? Of properly gathered, properly processed data, right? No, I'm not talking about internet data now. I'm talking in terms of information, in terms of statistics that drive business intelligence and business decisions, right? So now, the way to look at it is, if, in spite of all of those challenges, we are making progress, how much more could we then do if these challenges could be addressed, right? How much more could a business do, for instance, if it didn't have to spend a lot of its income on alternative power sources, right? How much more could, the local vendor do, for instance, if they had publicly available internet, right? Or at the very least, affordable private internet? How much more could they do in a day? What could be the potential transactional volume, right? For instance, if internet were a bit more affordable, right? Because every now and then, even among those who have adopted technologies, you go and a major challenge is, oh, internet is poor, internet is slow, oh, my POS isn't working, oh, bank app is experiencing downtime, and basic infrastructural challenges like that. You have many others, for instance, who don't have access to power and who at some point find it difficult to provide alternative power. Solar isn't as affordable yet as ideally it should be in a country where, the sun is quite strong, right? And it's quite consistently available in terms of power generation, right? And you, of course, have to consider the cost of fuel as a major challenge for many small and growing businesses, right? So we're asking ourselves, or we must ask ourselves, if right now we're able to have made a lot of progress in the contribution of certain sectors, what then could we do more if other sectors, were functional, if our power was better functioning, if internet was better functioning, for instance, if security was better functioning, because that's another challenge. You have businesses who can't open early enough and, who have to close really early because of certain security challenges in certain locations. They're doing great business, they're serving a customer base, but then they can't business extensively. Now, I mean, you look across other clients where security is better, right? For instance, and you realize that a lot of these businesses are able to function, late into the night, are able to function on a 24/7 basis. Why? Because the security infrastructure is tight. And so they're not worried about, oh, if I operate at 2 a.m., to say 6 a.m., will I not be robbed? Right? They can function for longer, which means more jobs, because then you have shifts, for instance, with people being able to work both in the daytime and at night. You have more income because people, for instance, who close late, who work maybe at odd hours of the day, are able to still come in and purchase goods and services. Right? So you now see how all of these challenges have a way of impacting themselves. And overall, in terms of the tax infrastructure, you find that businesses have to make more expenditure on tax deductible items, on power generation, and so on and so forth, right? And so because there are more costs on their end, there is therefore less profit on their end, and therefore there is less taxable income for government to receive from them, right? There are so many tax deductible items that are a reflection of our failure of infrastructure to significant extent, right? And so what that means, therefore, is that the better we improve our infrastructure, and not just in terms of physical infrastructure now, but even in terms of things like security, in terms of things like access to internet, right? The better in terms of things like transportation, ease of transportation, because transportation costs are also significantly impacting. You think, oh, what does transportation cost have to do with the digital economy? But then, first of all, you realize that the persons themselves involved in the digital economy are persons who have to pay transportation costs. So the higher transportation costs go, the higher the cost of their services also goes, right? So there is a circular impact of infrastructural deficits, right, on the cost even of the digital economy, because the digital economy is not isolated nor insulated from the general economy, from the costs of living, from the cost of production nationwide. So, in simple terms, if we improve quality of life, right? If we improve ease of access to resources, if we improve the general quality of our infrastructure nationwide, there is significant opportunity for growth. There is significant, opportunity for more inclusion in the digital economy, and there is significant opportunity for the growth of not just the national GDP, but for the quality of life for Nigerians.
So I'd like for us to focus now on jobs and remote work and, of course, global opportunity. Because one noticeable shift we've seen is that many Nigerians now work remotely from home for international companies. So is Nigeria well positioned to compete in the global digital market workforce? I think it's having a bit of challenge with the network.
Well, Nigeria, yes, Nigeria is
Okay, I think he's back on the call. Mr. Victor, can you hear me? So I was asking if Nigeria as a country is well positioned to compete in the global digital workforce, and are we creating an environment that allows our talent to grow locally instead of just relocating out of the country?
Now that's a two-sided question. Now, in terms of our ability to compete globally, that's not in doubt. First off, Nigeria has easily one of the largest youth populations globally. Now, it's estimated that one in every, I think, 30 persons worldwide will be African and will be a young person, right, by 2030. And importantly, a significant part of that youth population will be Nigerian, right? Already, as of the moment, we have 50% of our population being youth. That's between the ages of 16 upwards to about 35. We have already an upwards of 50% of our population falling within that range. So in terms of youth population, right, who are the key drivers of the digital economy? Nigeria is well positioned, right? And in terms of the suppliers of talent, especially in tech and the digital economy, Nigeria is among the top suppliers globally. We're one of the top 3 African suppliers, for instance, of software developers in terms of freelancers and even foreign talent, right? And we have a lot of our local talent here, people who are still within the country working for global firms and global projects remotely. However, while there are positives, the talent flight, otherwise known as the Japa syndrome, is real and we cannot ignore it. We have our skilled professionals relocating due to economic instability, right? You have costs flying up and down every day. And as we often say, once prices go up in Nigeria, they never come down. We have costs increasing. You have, again, the infrastructure gaps that we have identified. Situations where, for instance, young Nigerian talents complain of being maltreated by security officials because they look unconventional, they look, in quote, suspicious. Without any proper investigation, they're manhandled and extorted and so on and so forth, right? And then you have issues of currency volatility because, where the Naira is devalued, then it means that the value of whatever it is you're getting can be quite unstable. You're getting a lot, yes, but it's often not able to do a lot for you locally. It's not able to take care of a lot of very basic needs, right? And therefore it's not even enough to plan with in terms of future contingencies, in terms of personal growth plans, and so on and so forth, right? So whilst yes, we do have a strong talent base, whilst yes, our talent base in terms of sheer skill, in terms of sheer work ethic has been shown consistently to be capable of competing at the highest levels. I mean, we see this in the academic spaces, we see this in global workspaces where Nigerians are breaking records left, right, and center and doing things that, in many cases, no Black person has done before, right? However, talent retention remains a key issue, a strategic issue that we must address. And the faster we can, again, address our economic and infrastructure issues, the better we can retain talent here and remain competitive as a nation in the digital ecosystem.
Another aspect that we've seen dominate conversations in this particular space is about regulation and business confidence, because policy and regulation, as you are aware, plays a major role in economic growth. So from your experience, is Nigeria's regulatory environment giving digital businesses the stability that they need to grow and thrive?
That's a bit of an interesting question. Now, I'll take two examples. One, you have the Current Tax Act, and then of course you have the Startup Act. Now, in terms of taxation, for instance, because one of the issues businesses are often very worried about. Now, there are positives, right? For instance, you have the removal of VAT when it comes to certain business thresholds, right? You have a minimized personal income and personal income tax, for instance, and then even in terms of corporate taxes, right? Businesses who do not meet the 25 million mark generally are exempted from certain taxes. So on the taxation side, there are, yes, we must admit that there are certain reliefs for practitioners within the digital economy, as well as for small businesses within the digital economy. Yes. However, it's important to emphasize, obviously, that the work in terms of education still leaves a lot to be desired, right? Because there is a lot that small businesses and individual freelancers and experts, practitioners within the digital economy space are still not aware of, in terms of the tax reliefs, in terms of structures, in terms of, filing of their returns, whether they meet certain tax thresholds or not. There's a lot of educational work that needs to be done because there's a lot that people aren't aware of. Now, I'll jump very quickly in terms of the Startup Act. Now, it's another area where there's a lot of education required, because in terms of the provisions, in terms of the baseline infrastructure set, yes, there are certain benefits. It's not perfect, but there are certain benefits, especially in terms of freelancers and in terms of small and growing businesses, emerging startups within the digital economy space. Now, what I will say, however, and finally, yes.
Can you hear me, Mr. Victor?
The Ministry
I would
of...
like for us to make this a bit snappy, but
yes,
before we go, because I'm running out of time, I would like to talk about your particular field. Right. You're a barrister. So what common legal mistakes do business makes, and how can they correct these particular mistakes?
Right. One of the most common mistakes is the failure to protect intellectual property. In very simple terms, right? We see this so often with small businesses, with creatives. They have brilliant ideas, they have brilliant creations, but they all too often make the common mistake of not protecting their intellectual property, right? This is something that we at Zuri VT are asked to correct. Because failing to register your intellectual property is not a regulatory deficit. I say this a lot. Intellectual property is not a matter of regulation. Intellectual property, when properly, becomes itself an additional source of income. Because then you're speaking about merchandising, right? You're speaking about licensing, you're speaking about royalty, right? Essentially, you're creating additional streams of income where people now have to pay you to utilize your creative outputs. But where your IP is not protected, it's exposed to duplication, it's exposed to reproduction. We see this in movies, right? And we see this in movies. So many times before, many times after, right? Oh, this movie is protected by copyright. The duplication is allowed without consent of correct owner. It's a clear warning, right? It's a clear warning that you cannot utilize this IP product, this output, whether it's a movie or whatever it is, but this is respected. So not duplicate it commercially without our consent. And many times that consent is not just an agreement, it involves payment. It involves some sort of financial, reward to the owner of that intellectual property. But where such things are not protected, they are exposed. creatives go and they share ideas. There's no NDA, non-disclosure agreements. There's no compete agreement, right? And so their ideas exposed. Everybody can take them and run with them. You have people say, oh, this song was my idea. Oh, this movie that just came out, I wrote the script for it. I created this character, and so on and so forth. There is no proof, and therefore there is no protection. As we say in law, it's not the first to come up with an idea, the first to register it, protect it at the public. That you just secure your idea. It then gives legal rights for expanded opportunities, commercialize the idea, even beyond your own personal efforts. Right? Now, another mistake is not structuring agreements. You have creatives, wanting to do business with partners, and so on and so forth. There are no agreements. They work based on blind trust. Oh, I know this person. He's my friend. We were school together. Oh, this person is my uncle. Oh, this person is my mother's brother or my mother's, sister, so on and so forth. And there are no proper agreement structures. There's nothing documented. And when things go wrong, creatives are often at the worst end of these problems because they have nothing to follow. Also have issues operating with data protection compliance, right? Because working in the digital economy means that you're working with people's data, and there must be compliance with data protection regulations. But where we operate outside of those guidelines, we now expose ourselves to regulatory risks, right? Because then it means that
I think the audio, Barrister Victor, are you there? I think the audio. We're having a bit of challenge with the audio from Barrister Victor. Challenge with the audio from Barrister Victor. Well, we hope has been making very, very valuable, of course.
Please, if you can hear me now.
Well, thank you very much, Barrister Victor, for sharing those insightful ideas with us this morning. We really appreciate you joining us and giving us perspective on Nigeria's digital economy. And thank you once again. That discussion has been with Barrister Victor Pius Imiu, and we've been talking about Nigeria's digital economy, what we are getting right, and how to maximize those opportunities. And of course, we're able to look at business adoption, the infrastructural challenges, digital jobs, education, alignment, and of course regulations, and the broader question of whether Nigeria is building the right system to support sustainable growth. Now, one thing is clear, and that's the fact that Nigeria has got talent, ideas, and a growing digital presence. But then, opportunity alone is never enough. Maximizing the digital economy requires reliable infrastructure, consistent policy, strong business structures, and inclusive access for all. So the real question is not whether Nigeria has potential. It is whether we are building the foundations that are necessary to fully realize these potentials that we have. Thank you very much for staying with us. Conversation continues after this break.